Hello and welcome. In this video we want to do some questions related to limits. These questions are mostly related to the understanding of the limits, the idea of the limits and the concept behind the limit. So you have to have an understanding from the limits, from infinity and so on. The first question is this: find f of x and g of x such that limit of f of x when x approaches 0 is infinity and limit of g of x when x approaches 0 is infinity. And also we want the limit of f of x minus g of x when x approaches 0 to be equal to. So we looked for two functions. You have to find two functions such that limit of them when x approaches 0 is infinity, but limit of difference between them is 2. So this means that one of the functions is 2 units greater than the other one when x approaches 0. Look at here, limit of f of x minus g of x when x approaches 0 is 2. So this shows the difference between the two functions. And remember, the limit of f and g should be infinity when x approaches 0. If you look for functions that limit of them when x approaches 0 is infinity, maybe you can think to rational functions. For example, limit of 1 over x or 1 over x to the 2 or 1 over x to the 3 when x approaches 0 is infinity. But attention, there is a problem here. If x approaches 0 from the left, not from the right, limit of 1 over x would be negative infinity. To fix this problem, we can replace 1 over x with 1 over x to the 2. Then it doesn't matter x approaches 0 from the right or x approaches 0 from the left. In either case, limit of this function would be infinity. So this function satisfies this condition here. Limit of f of x, if we choose f of x as 1 over x to the 2, when x approaches 0, the limit of that function is infinity. But also attention, limit of g of x when x approaches 0 is also infinity. So we look for a function for g such that limit of that function when x approaches 0 is infinity. Also we can choose g of x as 1 over x to the 2. The limit of that is infinity. But there is a problem here. Then limit of the difference between them, if you subtract this from this, the difference would be 0. But we want limit of f of x minus g of x when x approaches 0 to be 2. So to make this happen, simply we can add 2 to here to make this 2 units more than the other function. So I think we could find the functions. So here we add 2 and we say this is f of x and this is g of x. Limit of both of them when x approaches 0 is infinity. Limit of 1 over x to the 2 plus 2. Limit of this part is infinity. Infinity plus 2 is infinity. And limit of the other one is also infinity. Now if we choose f of x as this and g of x as 1 over x to the 2, simply we can check that limit of f of x minus g of x. Let's see what is limit of f of x minus g of x. F of x is 1 over x to the 2 plus 2. What is g of x? 1 over x to the 2. If we subtract these two, what would be the limit? 1 over x to the 2 and 1 over x to the 2 cancel each other. And so we got 2 for the limit. So this shows that f of x as 1 over x to the 2 plus 2 and g of x as 1 over x to the 2 works for this function. And attention, there are other examples that work very well for f of x and g of x. Maybe you can, for example, let me write down an example here for you other than this. You can choose f of x as, for example, 2 over x to the 2 plus 3x plus 2, and you can choose g of x as 2 over x to the 2 plus, for example, x. Attention, limit of both of these functions when x approaches 0 is infinity, because this is infinity and this is infinity. So limit of these functions is infinity when x approaches 0. And if you subtract them from each other, if you subtract f of x from g of x, let's see what we have. If we subtract f of x from g of x, the difference between these two functions would be, let me write down f of x here. If we subtract g of x from that, we have this. This cancels with this. 3x minus x would be only 2x, but attention, x approaches 0. If you substitute 0 for that, 2x would be 0. Only these 2 remains, which we need it because we want the limit of the difference to be 2. So this is another example of such functions. Now look at the next question here. Find f of f and g such that limit of f of x is infinity, limit of g of x is infinity, but here we want the limit of f over g when x approaches 0 to be 5. So here we look for a function f such that limit of that function is infinity, but f is 5 times bigger than g. Attention again, limit of f over g is 5. So this means f is 5 times bigger than g. What you can choose for f? Because we did previous question, maybe it's not a bad idea to pause the video now and try to find f and g by yourself. If you choose f of x as 5 over x to the 2 and g of x 1 over x to the 2, these two functions satisfy the conditions in this question. Limit of f of x is obviously infinity. Limit of 5 over x to the 2 when x approaches 0 is infinity. Because it's 5 over something that approaches 0, any non-zero number over something that approaches 0 is infinity. Limit of g of x is clearly also infinity. But if you divide f by g, limit of, we want to see what is limit of f over g, because the function that we choose here should satisfy this condition also. Let's check it. F of x is 5 over x to the 2. G of x is 1 over x to the 2 as x approaches 0. If you simplify this, simply let me write down here 5 over x to the 2 times by reciprocal of this, which is x to the 2 1 over 1. When we divide fraction by fraction, we can multiply it by the reciprocal of the denominator. The x2 and x2 goes away and it equals 5. So it should be clear for you that when we divide f by g, the ratio of f and g is 5. So the limit equals 5. And actually it is clear from the definition of f and g, because we choose f 5 times bigger than g. So clearly limit of the ratio is also 5. And also, similar to the previous question, you can choose other examples, not necessarily only these examples. For example, another choice for f can be something like 5 over x to the 4 plus x, and g of x 1 over x to the 2 plus 2x. Why? Simply I can add these x's here and here, because when x approaches 0, these terms here and here go to infinity, and x and 2x go to 0, they approach to 0. So the significant terms when x approaches 0 in f and g are these two terms, and these extra terms here and here don't affect the limit of f and g when x approaches 0. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please subscribe in my channel and see you in the next videos.